companionship. Let's begin. Imagine this. You wake up in the morning, and instead of being pulled into the endless noise of notifications, social obligations, and shallow conversations, you feel free. There's no pressure to entertain meaningless small talk, no forced smiles, no exhausting attempts to fit into places where you don't belong. Instead, your mind is sharp, clear, and focused. You have time, real time, to think, to create, to explore the depths of your own intellect. Ideas flow freely, unshackled by the need for social validation. In solitude, you cultivate something rare: depth. While the world rushes to keep up with trends, you find solace in timeless truths. While others seek approval, you build something that needs no applause. You are not alone, you are self-sufficient. And in that independence, you experience a deeper connection, not to people, but to wisdom itself. What if this wasn't just a passing dream? What if this could be your reality? Because for those who understand the true nature of intelligence and social life, it is reality. And that shift in perspective is what we're about to uncover. But let's be honest, this isn't easy. If you've ever chosen solitude over social life, you've felt the weight of misunderstanding. Maybe you've been called distant, antisocial, or even arrogant. Maybe you've wondered if something is missing in you, if you should be more like everyone else. The world conditions us to believe that constant socialization equals happiness, that the more friends we have, the more valuable we are. That loneliness is a problem to be solved, not an experience to be understood. And yet, deep down, something feels off, because even in a crowded room, surrounded by voices, you felt alone. Even in laughter, there's been a quiet sense of detachment, as if part of you exists on a different frequency. This is not a flaw, it is a signal, a sign that your mind seeks something deeper. The journey to embracing this truth isn't simple. It means letting go of illusions. It means redefining connection, not as a social necessity, but as something far more intentional, far more meaningful. And to do that, we need to look at the mind of a philosopher who understood this struggle better than most. A man who saw society for what it truly is and dared to walk a different path. Arthur Schopenhauer was no stranger to solitude. He didn't just observe human nature, he dissected it with ruthless precision. To him, social life was not a source of fulfillment, but a distraction, a performance in which people sought validation rather than truth. Born in 1788, Schopenhauer was an outsider from the start. He saw through the illusions that others blindly accepted. While society obsessed over status, gossip, and entertainment, he turned inward, seeking meaning in philosophy, art, and the depths of human existence. But this came at a cost. His refusal to conform made him an outcast. He was ridiculed, dismissed, and even ignored by the very intellectual circles he should have belonged to. Yet, he remained unmoved, because Schopenhauer understood something most people never do. True intelligence is isolating, not by force but by nature. In his masterwork, The World as Will and Representation, he wrote of the loneliness of the intellectual. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. For it is only when he is alone that he is really free. To Schopenhauer, social life was a compromise, a dilution of one's thoughts, a sacrifice of one's depth. He saw that most conversations were empty, driven by ego rather than insight, and so he chose a different life, one of solitude, where his mind could operate at full capacity, uninterrupted by the trivialities of the world. But here's the real question. Was he right? Can withdrawing from society truly lead to a richer, more meaningful life? And if so, how do we apply this wisdom in a world that constantly demands our attention? The answer lies not just in philosophy, but in action, in understanding how to harness solitude rather than be consumed by it. And that's what we'll explore next. Schopenhauer's philosophy wasn't about rejecting social life entirely. It was about reclaiming control over it. He saw solitude not as a burden, but as a gateway to freedom. And in that freedom, he found clarity, creativity, and depth that the world could never offer. So how do we apply this in our own lives? How do we move from feeling isolated to embracing solitude as a tool for strength? Here are 3 fundamental shifts in mindset that can change everything. 1. Stop seeking validation from the crowd. Most social interactions are performative. People say what is expected, not what is true. They seek approval, not understanding. If you're highly intelligent, this will always feel exhausting because your mind operates on a different level. Schopenhauer believed that the need for social validation is a trap. The moment you detach from this craving, you become free. Your worth is no longer tied to how many friends you have or how well you fit in. Instead, it comes from within. Ask yourself, do I engage with others because I want to, or because I feel I must? If the answer is the latter, it's time to reclaim your space. 2. Use solitude as a power source, not a prison. Loneliness is painful when you resist it, but solitude, when embraced, is one of the most powerful states a person can experience. It is the space where deep thoughts emerge, where creativity flourishes, where ideas take form without interruption. Great minds, Einstein, Tesla, Da Vinci, didn't create their legacies in crowded rooms. They did so in solitude, where their minds could breathe. Instead of fearing time alone, use it. Read, write, think, building. The more you invest in solitude, the more it rewards you. 3. Curate meaningful connections instead of chasing social circles. Schopenhauer wasn't against all human interaction. He was against superficial interaction. He believed that true connection was rare and should be chosen wisely. Instead of seeking to be liked by many, focus on deep, intentional relationships. A few profound conversations with the right person are worth more than 1,000 empty exchanges with the wrong ones. Quality over quantity, always. These shifts are liberating. They remove the pressure to conform, to be someone you're not, to chase approval that never truly satisfies. And as we move forward, we'll uncover the psychological principles that explain why these insights work, and how they can redefine your entire perspective on social life. Why is it that intelligent people often find social life unappealing? Is it just a personality trait? Or is there something deeper, something wired into the very structure of the mind? Modern psychology offers a fascinating answer. It turns out that high intelligence isn't just about knowing more, it's about thinking differently. The way a highly intelligent mind processes the world is fundamentally distinct, which explains why social life often feels unfulfilling. Let's break this down. First, depth versus surface level thinking. Most social interactions are built on small talk, social norms, and unwritten rules. They require quick, surface-level thinking, responding in ways that maintain harmony rather than challenge ideas. But for those with deep intellectual curiosity, this is draining. The mind naturally seeks depth, philosophy, science, art, meaning. When conversations remain on the surface, they feel empty, even frustrating. Psychologists call this intellectual loneliness, a feeling of being surrounded by people, yet starved of meaningful dialogue. It's not that socializing is inherently bad, it's that most socializing fails to nourish the deeper parts of the mind. 2. The energy cost of socializing. Research in cognitive psychology has shown that highly intelligent people experience social interaction differently. The brain's prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for deep thinking and problem solving, becomes more engaged when processing complex ideas than when engaging in casual conversation. This means that for intelligent individuals, socializing isn't just uninteresting, it's exhausting. The mental energy required to process deep thoughts is far greater than what's needed for light-hearted chatter. This is why solitude often feels recharging, while social gatherings feel draining. It's not about being antisocial. It's about how the brain allocates energy. 3. The need for independent studies in evolutionary psychology suggests that highly intelligent people are more independent by nature. Unlike most, they don't rely on constant social reinforcement to feel secure. Instead, they find satisfaction in their own pursuits, learning, creating, and exploring ideas. This aligns perfectly with Schopenhauer's belief. The more intelligent a man is, the more he finds originality in others rare. When you think deeply, you naturally become more selective. You don't need a crowd to feel validated. You don't crave constant interaction to feel fulfilled. Your mind is your own world, rich and self-sustaining. Understanding these psychological principles is freeing. It shows that your experience isn't a flaw, it's a feature. You're not missing out on social life. You're simply wired for something greater. And that realization opens the door to something powerful. The ability to build a life that aligns with your true nature, rather than forcing yourself into spaces where you don't belong. Now let's take this momentum and look forward, because the more you embrace this perspective, the more it transforms your future. Imagine, for a moment, what your life could look like if you fully embrace this understanding. No more forcing yourself into conversations that drain you. No more guilt for choosing solitude over superficiality. No more questioning whether you're missing out just because you prefer depth over distraction. Instead, picture a future where your time is your own, where your thoughts are uninterrupted, where your energy is reserved for things that actually matter. This isn't just wishful thinking. It's a shift in mindset that reshapes everything. Because the moment you stop resisting who you are and start aligning with it, the world opens up in ways you never imagined. Here's what that looks like. 1. You become unapologetically selective. Instead of scattering your time across endless social obligations, you start choosing with precision. Who is worth your energy? What conversations add value to your life? What spaces actually nourish your mind? You stop trying to be everywhere. You stop trying to please everyone. And in doing so, you reclaim your time and mental clarity. 2. You replace social noise with mental mastery. Without the constant pull of shallow interactions, your mind has room to think. You read more. You reflect more. You engage with ideas rather than distractions. This is where true growth happens, not in the noise of the crowd, but in the silence of introspection. And as you develop this habit, you become sharper, more creative, more intellectually powerful than ever before. 3. You forge relationships that actually matter. When you no longer crave social validation, you stop wasting time on connections that drain you. Instead, you build a circle of quality over quantity, people who challenge you, inspire you, and engage with you on a deeper level. This is what Schopenhauer meant when he said, "The wise have always said the same things, and fools, who are the majority, have always done just the opposite. The intelligent don't chase crowds. They build meaningful bonds with the few who truly understand them." This is where you're heading. A life not dictated by the expectations of the world, but by the depth of your own mind. A future where you are in full control of your time, your energy, your thoughts. And to bring this vision to life, let's ground it in something real, something personal. A story that shows exactly how powerful this transformation can be. Let me tell you a story. One that might feel uncomfortably familiar. There was a time when I tried to fit in, when I believed that having more friends, attending more events, and being socially active was the key to fulfillment. I played the role well. I smiled at the right moments, engaged in small talk, nodded along to conversations that didn't really interest me. But no matter how much I tried, there was always a disconnect. I'd leave social gatherings feeling exhausted, as if I had spent hours performing a version of myself that wasn't real. The noise, the distractions, the constant need to be on. It drained me in a way I couldn't explain. And yet, I felt guilty. Because wasn't this what people were supposed to enjoy? It wasn't until I started reading Schopenhauer that something clicked. His words didn't just resonate, they validated what I had felt all along. The idea that solitude wasn't a weakness, but a strength. That intelligence naturally seeks depth, and depth is often found in quiet, not in crowds. So I made a decision. I stopped forcing conversations that felt empty. I stopped chasing connections that didn't inspire me. I started spending more time alone, not as an escape, but as a deliberate choice. And something unexpected happened. I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. I read more than I ever had before. I wrote. I thought deeply. My mind felt sharper. My time felt purposeful. And when I did choose to engage socially, it was on my terms, with people who actually brought value into my life. For the first time, I wasn't pretending. I was living in alignment with the way my mind naturally worked. And maybe, in some way, that's exactly where you are right now. Maybe you felt that same exhaustion, that same detachment. Maybe you've questioned yourself, wondering if something was wrong with you for not enjoying what others seem to love. If so, I want you to hear this. Nothing is wrong with you. You are not broken. You are simply wired for something deeper. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner your life begins to feel real. Now, as we approach the final moments of this journey, let's bring everything together. The conclusion that ties it all in and leaves you with something powerful to take with you. So what does all of this mean for you? It means that the world will always try to pull you into its rhythm, into its expectations, its noise, its definitions of happiness. It will tell you that success is about popularity, that fulfillment comes from being surrounded by others, that solitude is something to be feared rather than embraced. But you know better. You've felt the exhaustion of superficial interactions. You've questioned the value of mindless socializing. You've sensed that your time, your energy, your thoughts, these are not things to be given away carelessly. And now you understand why. Schopenhauer's wisdom wasn't about isolating yourself completely. It was about reclaiming your mind, about choosing depth over distraction, about understanding that true intelligence is rare, and with that rarity comes a different way of engaging with the world. You are not here to conform. You are here to think, to create, to seek meaning in places most people never bother to look. That may mean spending more time alone. It may mean walking a different path than those around you. But in doing so, you gain something most people never will. Freedom. Freedom from the need to be liked. Freedom from the pressure to entertain shallow connections. Freedom to invest in yourself, in your ideas, in a life that feels authentic to you. And if you embrace that, truly embrace it, you will never feel lost again. Because while the world may always chase the fleeting comfort of crowds, you will have something far more powerful, a mind that is your own. But before we end, there's one final thing left to say. One last step to bring this philosophy into action and to connect with those who truly understand it. Now, here's where this becomes real. You've just spent the last 20 minutes confronting an uncomfortable truth. The realization that much of what society values may not align with your nature. That solitude, depth, and selective connection are not weaknesses, but strengths. But here's the real question. What will you do with this understanding? Will you go back to forcing interactions that drain you? Will you keep chasing validation from people who don't truly see you? Or will you make the shift? Will you step fully into the freedom that comes with embracing who you really are? The choice is yours. And if you're someone who resonates with these ideas, you are not alone. There is an entire world of thinkers, creators, and deep souls who understand exactly what you feel. People who don't just accept solitude, but thrive in it. People who value depth over distraction, meaning over mindlessness. I want you to be part of that. Drop a comment below. Tell me, have you ever felt this disconnect? Have you ever questioned whether social life, as it's commonly practiced, actually makes sense for you? I want to hear your experiences, your thoughts, your struggles. Because conversations like these, they matter. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe. This channel, Think, exists for people like you. People who don't just follow the crowd, but question it. Who seek wisdom, self-mastery, and a deeper understanding of life. Because in a world that often feels loud and shallow, we need more spaces for quiet depth. And that's exactly what we're building. So if you're ready to embrace that, if you're ready to think differently, join us. And remember, you are not missing out. You are stepping into something greater. Until next time, stay thoughtful, stay free, and above all, keep thinking.